For the last week, I've been in Geneva attending Watches and Wonders 2024, the largest trade show in the watch industry. While only 54 brands showcase their new releases at the event, held at Palexpo, just about every brand is in Geneva showcasing their watches and new releases. While there are other trade shows held throughout the year, Watches and Wonders is the biggest and most important one. This is the week we see the most new releases from brands. This year I was able to attend the event for the first time, and I wanted to go through some of my favorite releases. And look, while I agree, there weren't as many exciting releases this year, especially from one big brand in particular, there were definitely some noteworthy new watches. Before I get into my favorite watches from Watches and Wonders 2024, I just wanted to say that if you've been enjoying my videos, please like and subscribe to my channel. Now let's talk about my favorite watches from Watches and Wonders 2024. Probably the most talked about release of this year's Watches and Wonders was Tudor's Black Bay GMT 58 Vintage Coke. I think it might be a mix of anticipation and rumors that Rolex was going to release a Coke GMT, but I think that Tudor is just a brand that really has its finger on the pulse of what enthusiasts want, and then actually provides it. The Black Bay 58 has become one of the brand's most popular models, and fitting it with a GMT movement and a really unique burgundy and black colorway that's also gilt is simply an attractive watch aimed at enthusiasts everywhere. The watch measures in at a nearly perfect 39mm by 12.8mm thick, and since it's powered by the Tudor MT5450U movement, the watch is both METAS and COSC certified, meaning it's unlikely to have any problems. And for a watch that prices in under $5,000, I don't know what more we could have asked for. The Oris Aquis has been a popular watch since it was introduced into the brand's catalog in 1998. But since then, it's remained largely unchanged. Sure, we've seen some limited versions of the watch, but its profile has remained pretty true to its original form. This year, Oris relaunched the Aquis collection, where choice is the name of the game here. The watch comes in 3 different sizes, but I feel that the 41.5mm feels the best to me overall. The brand has revamped the case shape, as well as cleaned up the dial, making simple but welcome refinements to the dial. The indexes have been polished out a little, there's less text, and the colors have been revamped to be a little bit more modern. The case is slimmed down, with the bracelet being reworked to increase the size of the center link and create a more exaggerated taper. Further, the brand is offering the Aquis in both Sellita-based movements and the brand's in-house Caliber 400. So with all these options, there really is something in the budget for anyone, and I always like options. Sure, you've heard about a Perpetual calendar, but have you heard about the Eternal Calendar? This year, IWC has created a complication that only needs to be set once, and as long as the watch is worn and remains wound, will keep the time, day, date, month, and year for close to 4,000 years. While most perpetual calendars have to have adjustments made, the Eternal Calendar mechanically programs things like leap year, non-standard calendar months, and can even function on a Gregorian calendar. One of the main ways IWC has managed this is building in things like skipping a day every 400 years to account for leap years using a 400-year train that only makes one revolution every 400 years to account for this. Further, the watch utilizes among the most accurate moon phases that I'm aware of. Using a differential gear, the watch accounts for the fact that the moon doesn't follow a specific calendar cycle. Instead of a standard 30 or 31 day calendar month, the moon cycles 29.54 days, requiring a gear to track precisely where the lunar cycle is. IWC claims it's accurate to 45 million years. And even with all of this, the watch remains superbly legible. While yes, there is a lot going on with the dial, IWC has opted to use glass panels to display the different timekeeping indicators, and that gives an overall transparent cohesiveness to an otherwise insanely complicated watch. It's truly a wearable piece of mechanical art that testifies to IWC's penchant for timekeeping. The Tag Heuer Monaco is among the most recognized watches in the racing world. First introduced in 1969, the watch has made its way through racing movie history, most famously worn by Steve McQueen. The watch has had its share of special and limited editions, but none quite like the new split-second Rotr Pont. This year at Watches and Wonders, Tag Heuer unveiled its most complicated chronograph yet. The split-second Rotr Pont is machined out of titanium with sapphire on the front and back to show off the real star of the show, the caliber TH8100. The movement is made entirely out of titanium with minimal components to keep the watch at a mere 85 grams. An insanely light chronograph that's truly a feat to pull off. And it's further impressive when it still maintains that 1/100th of a second split-second function. To further keep it light, the dial is fashioned out of a sheet of sapphire to better view the movement, which is held by two large bridges. The watch comes in either red or blue, with the brand's iconic square subdial still remaining on the dial. Overall, the Tag Heuer Monaco split-second Rotr Pont isn't only a cool watch, it's a testament to the brand's penchant for technical innovation. Gerald Charles has always been a unique brand to me because it's born out of the brain of Gerald Genta, arguably the world's most premier watch designer, responsible for the likes of the Nautilus, Royal Oak, and Ingenieur. After his passing, the brand has been run by Federico Ziviani, who has meticulously maintained Genta's vision. This year, as a first for the brand, they released a stainless steel sport watch that has all the hallmarks of Gerald Genta. The watch itself still features the brand's signature smile, which actually presented some challenges from a design standpoint. Obviously, the bracelet is a core part of a sport watch, and being integrated to an asymmetrical case is a challenge. However, Gerald Charles pulled it off flawlessly. The bracelet integrates beautifully into the case, and the result is a solid stainless steel sport watch ripped right from the Gerald Genta sketchbook. The textured dial fits in perfectly, and I believe that we may be seeing a future contender to competing with the big guys. One of the more complicated watches on this list is the Panerai Submersible Luna Rossa Experience Edition Tourbillon GMT. A mouthful, I know. Panerai has long paired lavish experiences with limited edition watches, but this one is really unique. The purchaser of this watch will get to go on a once-in-a-lifetime trip to the America's Cup Finals in Barcelona and hang out with the Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli sailing team for a peek behind the curtain of the competition and the team. For a watch this expensive and complicated, it's cool to get to pair it with an experience with the watch too. The watch measures in at a fairly large 45 millimeters in a treated titanium so as not to add to the weightiness of a watch of this size. It also features 300 meters of water resistance. Like the name suggests, the watch features a visible tourbillon at 10 o'clock, as well as a day-night indicator and a GMT function. With the exclusivity of the event and the watch itself, only 20 of these will be made and come with a pretty steep price tag of $176,000, though it's not all that much more than the first iteration of this movement we see in the Bronzo. Nobody does movements like Moser. The Streamliner collection has long been a massive part of the brand's core DNA. Its integrated sport watch offering is unlike most of the steel sport watches out there. Its serpent-like integrated bracelet gives the entire watch a unique look, and its fluid cushion S case simply has a unique presence to the wrist. That being said, it's gone through its paces of different models and iterations. This year, Moser brought some heat with the all-new skeletonized version with the Streamliner Skeleton Tourbillon. For starters, the movement is simply stunning, and pictures really don't do the watch justice. Moser has essentially stripped down the entire movement to remove any unnecessary clutter to provide what they call the minimalistic skeleton treatment. What's left is a largely open-work movement with minimal bridges to provide a clear view of each of the moving components. It's visually interesting and definitely has become one of my favorite skeleton sport watches. Jaeger-LeCoultre rolled up this year with a number of ultra-complicated watches, something that's become synonymous with the brand's ethos and core releases. One of my favorites of this year's Watches and Wonders was the ultra-complicated duometer Helio Tourbillon Perpetual. The caliber 388 utilizes the brand's duometer technology, which is essentially a way to add more intense complications without comprising the accuracy of the timepiece. And with the duometer Helio Turbon, the brand introduces even more complication into the bones of the movement. Instead of the typical single or double axis tourbillon, JLC has used a third axis. This gives what appears to be a wobble or spinning top movement to the tourbillon. If that wasn't enough, they also added a perpetual calendar and grand date complication. Overall, it's one of the most beautiful and complicated dress watches I've seen in a while. So, Bulgari didn't actually participate in Watches and Wonders at Polexpo, but they did showcase their new releases in Geneva. And this year, Bulgari showed up in a major way and reclaimed the trophy from Richard Mille and the Ferrari UP01, released a couple of years ago. The Bulgari Octo Finissimo Ultra measures in at a whopping 1.7 millimeters as a complete watch. And what's even more impressive is the movement is COSC certified, so the watch is a functional sport watch on top of being as thin as a toothpick. The movement had to be reworked from the brand's initial Ultra release to shave off an extra half a millimeter, but the result is a new world record that is seemingly going to be incredibly difficult to beat. From a sheer technicality standpoint, this is an incredible milestone for the brand, but even further, it's simply a beautiful watch on top of all of it, which is often rare when going for technical achievement. The watch features a QR code on the barrel that allows the wearer to learn more about the watch when scanned. So, anyone who's been around the industry for even a short amount of time knows that the anticipation of what Rolex is going to release next is pretty debilitating. Everyone wants to know what the crown has up its sleeve. This year, Rolex released a number of novelties, but my favorite is the new steel addition to the GMT Master 2 line with the gray and black bezel, the reference 126710 GRNR. While it's definitely not the most exciting possible release from Rolex, I find it attractive. It actually reminds me of the bezel on the yellow gold and two-tone GMT released last year. It's not a Coke like everyone was looking for, but I'm not complaining. Denim was the name of the game for Patek this year, offering a slew of novelties aptly nicknamed with the moniker. But my favorite release was actually one that was unveiled last summer as a limited edition in Tokyo. For Watches and Wonders, the brand has announced that the Patek Philippe World Timer with date, reference 5330G001, will now be a standard part of the brand's collection. The watch has essentially stayed the same since it was initially showcased, though the buzz around this watch this year, now that people could put their hands on it, was loud. The World Timer features the same unique denim look with colorful indicators, though the real big part of the show is a technical feat that was mostly thought impossible for a long time. The Caliber 240 HUC is now able to automatically change the date based on the time zone of the city you select. Patek has long been a master of the travel watch, but this firmly solidifies it. Grand Seiko showed up to Watches and Wonders this year with a whole lot of bling. The SBGD line has long been where the brand gets to let their hair down and play with precious materials and jewels. This year, they upped their game and released what's arguably their blingiest watch to date, the SBGD 215 in blue. The watch comes in a Gemset Platinum 950 case that measures in at almost 45 millimeters by 14.4 millimeters. Set in the case are over 300 gems between diamonds and sapphires. They're placed in a step pattern on the bezel and dial, creating an illusion of major depth. The dial's set in a way that only Grand Seiko can really accomplish. Inside the watch is an all-new movement, the 9R01 spring drive, utilizing 3 barrels instead of the spring drive's typical single barrel, giving the watch an amazing 8 days of power reserve. Overall, Grand Seiko doesn't often make a spectacle of loud timepieces, but they seem to be more than comfortable doing it. This is a watch that's meant to be seen, and who doesn't love a little bling in their life? So those are 11 of my favorite watches from Watches and Wonders 2024. Let me know in the comments your favorite or least favorite watch release during the show, and head over to wristenthusiast.com to see more of our Watches and Wonders coverage. We will be posting more coverage in the weeks to come. Thanks for watching.